Came sin, who knew no sin, we might become his righteousness. He humbled himself and carried the cross. Love so amazing, love so amazing. Jesus Messiah, name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Emmanuel, rescue for sinners, the ransom from heaven, Jesus Messiah, Lord of all. His body the bread, his blood the wine, broken and poured out, all for love. The whole earth trembled and the veil was torn. Love so amazing, love so amazing. Jesus Messiah, name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Emmanuel, rescue for sinners, a ransom from heaven, Jesus Messiah, Lord of all. All our hope is in you. All our hope is in you. All the glory to you, God, light of the world, Jesus Messiah, name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Emmanuel, rescue for sinners, a ransom from heaven, Jesus Messiah, Lord of all. Jesus Messiah, name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Emmanuel, rescue for sinners, a ransom from heaven, Jesus Messiah, Lord of all. Jesus Messiah, Lord of all. Lord of all.
Should we pray? Dear Lord, it's another year is at its end, and what a year it has been. So many wonderful things, as well as many sad times ahead. Please watch over any who need your healing or who are grieving the loss of a loved one. We thank you for your Son Jesus and for all you do for all of us. Please watch over our country and heal all around us. We pray in your name.
We'll continue our service this morning by singing Crown with Many Crowns. That's number 234 in the hymnal.
the youth are having lock-in at the Mazan Legion Hall from 7 to 9 a.m. And there's signs up everywhere, so bring what supplies you need and your acceptance sheet from the parents that, and just have a great time. Narcotics Anonymous are having a New Year's celebration in Fellowship Hall tomorrow night from 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. And Wednesdays, their meeting is at 6, Bible study is at 6, and choir practice is at 7:30. 7:30, thank you. And then next Sunday, there's going to be a reception for Jamie after her 20-plus years of service as a church secretary. So please come and wish her well. And please feel free to bring gifts of gratitude and well wishes, for this is the servant of the Lord. Food pantry are in need of cans of soup or money. They can always use money. So, and next Thursday, there will be a funeral dinner at our fellowship hall for Williams, for God Williams, and it will be Kathy Williams' circle. So, if anyone would wish, please bring dishes to pass. It probably will be at like at noon soon. Are there any other announcements? We still have a lot of pecans, people.
Do we have any prayer concerns or things to pray about this week? Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank everyone that extended sympathy to myself and my family in the passing of my mother this past week. Several of you made the long trek up there in very, very gracious fashion. I'm grateful for that. Thank you for that. Another extremely great concern to myself, received a call yesterday from Joel Sandino, that owns Agritile here north of town. He and his wife Erica have a 6-year-old son, Evan, that was just diagnosed yesterday with quite severe leukemia. And they're in Chicago, going to begin treatments immediately for that. And so that's definitely something we need to keep them in prayers, because they're obviously very concerned.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Remember Sheila Logan, please.
Can you remember Sheila Logan? Okay.
Need to remember the Williams family.
Right. For those of you who don't know, Bob passed away Thursday afternoon, and services will be held at the Davis Funeral Home in Morris. Visitation on Wednesday from 5 to 8, and then the funeral service will be on Thursday at 10:30, also at Davis. Anyone else? Okay, let's pray. God, we thank you for today, that we gather together as a large extended family to talk about the things that give us joy, to talk about the things that are on our hearts. God, for some it's been a joyous week having family in and friends and celebration of your birth, and for others it's been a tough week with the loss of parents, with the loss of spouses. God, I pray that you would be with all of those who are suffering loss this week, that you would comfort them, that you would encourage them, that they would feel your love and strength. God, we pray for this little boy who's been diagnosed with leukemia, who has a long road ahead. I pray that the treatments would be successful. I pray that his body would have the strength to do what it needs to do and do healing. God, I also, we want to continue praying for Sheila Logan and the things that she's dealing with now. God, I pray a blessing upon the service, that you would open our hearts to the message that you want us to hear this morning. Whatever it happens to be. God, move us, shape us, change us. We thank you so much for your Son. It's in his name that we pray. Amen. With those who are taking up the offering, please come forward.
One more time, you've heard the story of our Savior's birth. Heard how few beheld His glory when He came to earth. Oh, but soon every eye shall see Him, angels at His side. See Him now on a great white stallion in the eastern skies, sent by the Father. Jesus going, call my children, the trumpet sounds, and the angels sing like never before. With shepherds and wise men, we humbly bow, and every tongue confess that He's Lord. When He comes in all His glory, comes to claim His own, we won't need a star to guide us when we go home. Once a baby in a manger, no at the inn. Now a King reigns forever over death and sin, sent by the Father. Jesus going, call my children, the trumpet sounds, and the angels sing like never before. With shepherds and wise men, we humbly bow, and every tongue confess that He's Lord. Sent by the Father, Jesus going, call my children, a trumpet sounds, and the angels sing like never before. With shepherds and wise men, we humbly bow, and every tongue confess that He is, and every tongue confess that He is Lord.
that I forgot to mention. This afternoon, if any of you are free, we need your help. Right now we're in the process of doing some renovating and repainting and all sorts of fun stuff over in the nursery. And some of it has already been done yesterday, and we had a few folks come out and help, but we could always use more help. So if you would, if you're free this afternoon, we could use some help. What time are you thinking?
Anytime right after the service for a couple hours today, and then actually Monday morning too.
Okay.
It's basically painting, and I need an electrician because I don't want to get killed. I haven't got much skills, and all we want to do is redo all the outlets because none of them are with the 3-prong and stuff. So it's pretty basic stuff. I got all the supplies to do it. All right, I think we got all the supplies. It's all basic stuff.
Okay.
Any sort of electrician tomorrow or Monday or anytime throughout the week. She just wants to have it ready for the 13th for like an open house.
Okay. So if you're free, if you're able to help, if you know anything about electricity other than it hurts, please come and help either today or tomorrow morning. We would greatly appreciate it. Thanks. You may be seated.
Okay, today's scripture reading, we're back in Genesis. Genesis 19, 1 through 11. The two heavenly messengers arrived in Sodom that evening, and Lot was sitting at the gate of the city. When Lot saw them, he went out to meet them and bowed low, his face touching the ground. Please, my lords, take time to come to your servant's house to spend the night and wash your feet. Then you can rise early and be on your way. No, we will be fine spending the night in the city square. But Lot persisted and urged them to come home with him and enjoy his hospitality. They agreed finally and came with Lot to his house. Lot prepared a huge meal for them, served them with unleavened bread, and they ate until they were full. But before they could lay down to rest for the night, the men of the city, that is, the men of Sodom, young and old alike, every last one of them, surrounded the house and called out to Lot, "Who are the men who came with you to your house tonight? We saw them go in with you. Bring them out. We want to sleep with them." Lot slipped out of the door to address the men, shutting it firmly behind him. Lot said to them, "Look, I beg you, brothers, don't do this. Don't sink to this level of depravity. Look, I have 2 daughters, both are virgins. How about this? I'll bring them out for you instead. You can do with them as you please. But don't do anything to these men. They are my guests. They deserve the protection of my home. Get out of the way, man. Look, this guy came to our city as a stranger. He's not one of us, and yet he thinks he has the right to judge all of us. You better watch out, or we'll treat you far worse than we'll treat your guest." They came to Lot and pushed him hard against the door until it was about to break. And then the men inside reached out and pulled Lot into the house with them, shutting the door securely to block the men of Sodom out. Then the heavenly messengers struck all of these men pressing at the door with blindness, both young and old alike. It wasn't long before they exhausted themselves blindly, groping for the door.
And continuing on in chapter 19 of Genesis with verse 12. Do you have anyone else here in the city? Sons-in-laws, sons, daughters, any other members of your family whom you want to save? If so, you need to get them out of here right now. We're going to destroy this place. Because of the immense outcry the Eternal One has received regarding the depravity of this city, the Eternal has sent us here to destroy it. So Lot went out and he found the young men who had pledged to marry his daughters. Get up and get out of this place. The Eternal One is going to destroy the city. But his sons-in-law thought he was kidding and wouldn't budge. At dawn, the heavenly messengers urged Lot to action again. Lot, you need to get up, take your wife and 2 daughters out of here. Otherwise you will be consumed along with the rest of the city. But Lot kept procrastinating. So the two heavenly messengers grabbed him, his wife, and his 2 daughters by the hand. They took them outside the city, a safe distance away, because the Eternal decided to show mercy to Lot and his family. As they were leading them to safety, one of the messengers gave this instruction. Now run! Run for your lives. Don't look back or stop anywhere in the plain. Head for the hills, or you'll die along with everyone else. But Lot said, My lords, no, I realize you've shown me great kindness and favored me by saving my life, but please, I can't run that far. The devastation will surely catch up with me, and I'll die anyway. Look, over there is a city. It's not too far. I could escape there. It's just a little one. Please, let me go there instead. Then my life will surely be saved. Look, as a favor to you, I won't destroy the little city you're talking about. But hurry now, escape there, because I can't do anything until you arrive there safely. Because of this, the little city that Lot escaped to was called Zoar, which means little. Lot and his family arrived in Zoar just as the sun was coming up. Then the Eternal One rained sulfur and fire from out of the heavens onto Sodom and Gomorrah. He destroyed both cities, along with the other villages and towns in the valley, and all of the people who lived there. Even the vegetation was wiped out. But Lot's wife never made it. She lagged behind her husband and looked back, despite the messenger's advice, and she turned into a pillar of salt. Meanwhile, Abraham rose early in the morning and went out to the place where he had stood at the feet of the Eternal One. He looked down toward where Sodom and Gomorrah had been. He looked up and down the valley, and everywhere he looked, clouds of smoke were billowing up, black, like smoke from a giant furnace. Now you know the story of how God destroyed the cities of the valley, but he remembered Abraham and his covenant with him. So he sent Lot out of the destruction, out of the cities where he had been living. This is the word of the Lord.
Said the night wind to the little lamb, do you see what I see?
All right, that's the last Christmas song I promise that you will hear. Rachel and I have a cat. His name is Razzie, and I'm very fond of my cat. And so if I seem to talk about him a lot, I apologize for that. But we don't have kids, so that's where my stories come from. Razzie is an indoor cat. He doesn't go outside. He stays inside. And because of that, he has incredibly soft fur. He never really has bug problems, and he doesn't smell like funny things, right? Most of the time. We don't let Razzie go outside. He wants to. He really does. You open the door and he'll stand and he'll sniff, and sometimes he'll dash out and we have to run down the steps and grab him and put him back inside. He doesn't understand why we won't let him go outside. Some of you have done the same sort of thing with your kids. Maybe you don't let them go outside, I don't know, but you have other things that you put limitations on, right? You don't let a 6-year-old drive the car. They're just not ready for that. You don't let someone who's 4 watch a rated R movie. They're just not able to discern that. You put certain limitations on people, and the reason that we do this is because we have a bigger, grander perspective. Maybe we don't let them hang out with that crowd of friends because we can see already that they're trouble. And they might not understand it, they might not fully get it, but we are trying to do what's best for them because we love them. Sometimes they have trouble seeing what we see. We are back in Genesis. I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but it's news nonetheless. We're back in Genesis. We've been in Genesis since August, and we've covered a lot of ground. We've looked at all sorts of things, all the way back from creation, and we've learned about Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel and Seth and Enoch and Lamech and Noah and Methuselah and Abram and Sarai and Lot and all sorts of people. We had a Garden of Paradise. We had an early murder. We had a global flood. We had all sorts of things happen. There was actually a war where you had 5 kings against 4. There have been all sorts of things that have happened just within the first 19 chapters of Genesis. And now we come to Genesis 19. So if you have a Bible, please turn to Genesis chapter 19. We've already read the text a little bit, and I'm going to hit a few highlights. But first, I would like to show you a live pyrotechnic demonstration of what Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction actually looked like. So just hold on. I'm not really going to light the stage on fire. That was a joke. Everybody's holding their breath because they really don't know. Genesis chapter 19. Starting with verse 1. It says, "The 2 angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city." Now, I need to take you back a couple weeks, back to Genesis chapter 18. If you want to let your eyes drift across the page to Genesis chapter 18, that's fine. In Genesis chapter 18, Abraham is sitting at his tent, at his home. It's the middle of the day. It's high noon. He's 100 years old. And he sees these visitors off in the distance. He recognizes them. And he realizes that one of them is actually God. Some people think this might have been Jesus that met Abraham. But Abraham immediately hops up. He goes to greet them. He offers them all of these meals. He runs around. He gets everything prepared. And you'll remember the message that the visitors had for Abraham. Abraham, you're going to have a son. 1 year from now, you are going to have a son. Do you remember Abraham's response? He laughs. His wife Sarah, when she overhears this, she laughs. Because she's 90 years old. Abraham is 100 years old. This is just nonsense. Compare that story in Genesis chapter 18 to what we find in Genesis 19. Verse 1, "The 2 angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city." You'll notice in chapter 19 there are only 2 visitors. God decided not to make this trip. There was something about the wickedness of Sodom, the depravity of the city, the evil that existed there, that God just could not be a part of that. See, God has trouble existing in the same time, in the same space that evil does. And so instead, he just sends the 2 angels. They arrive in Sodom in the evening. Now, this is just a fun fact. As you're reading through Scripture, something to keep your eyes open for. Pay attention to the times of day that things happen. If something happens in the morning, that's probably a good thing. If something happens in the evening, maybe it's more of a mysterious, a secretive, a not so good thing. These angels appear to Abraham at high noon, and yet they come to Sodom in the evening. And Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. Do you know why this is important? Let me tell you. Lots of things happen at the gates of the city. If, I don't know, Dan owed me a lot of money. You owe me a lot of money. And I had to settle that matter. Dan and I would go to the gates of the city, and there would be a judge sitting there, and the judge would say, "Dan, you need to give Tyler a lot of money, or you'll be thrown in prison." And so the dispute would be settled. If somebody's ox had trampled on somebody else's garden, they would bring the case to the gates of the city, and it would be settled there. If somebody wanted to buy land from somebody, they would bring it to the gates of the city and they would settle the deal there. All civil actions happened at the gates of the city. So if you had problems, if you had disputes, if you had deals, if you had anything that you wanted to accomplish socially, it happened in the gates of the city. And Lot is sitting there. Abraham is sitting in his tent. He's at home. And Lot is sitting in the hub of social activity. And did you notice in chapter 19, notice the similarity of responses, okay? Chapter 19, verse 2, Lot says to these men, "My lords, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way early in the morning." Drift back over to chapter 18, verse 3. Abraham says, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat so that you can be refreshed, and then go on your way, now that you have turned your servant." The words are very similar, right? "I'm glad you're here. Thanks for not going right past me. Here, let me give you something to eat, something to wash up, and you can rest for a while, and then you can go on your way." The wording is all very similar, but the demeanor is totally different. 2 weeks ago, I posed the question, how would your life change if you viewed every single person that you came in contact with as the son or daughter of God? For Abraham, that meant running around, making sure everything was ready. He made sure, okay, we got to have bread. I need you to bake some bread. Okay, hey, I need you to kill a cow so we can have burgers. Okay, sounds good. I need you to make sure all this stuff is ready to go so that we have the best possible thing prepared for the Lord. And Lot says, "I'm glad you guys are here. Let's, what are you thinking for dinner? Sounds, you guys hungry? Maybe we can wash our hands a little bit, play some canasta, and, he's not in a hurry at all, is he? He takes his time, and he doesn't rush around at all. There's no urge there. There's no immediate need to take care of the situation. Because how you view God directly affects how you view others and how you relate to them. Let me say it again. How you view God directly affects how you relate to others. Everybody say Lot. Lot. One more time. Lot. Lot is the center of this story. And Lot is an interesting character. See, Lot was not necessarily a follower of God. He would be one of those people who says that he's a Christian, but that's about as far as it goes. His life did not reflect what he said he believed in. If you remember, Lot traveled with Abraham. Everybody shake your head if you remember that. Yeah. Lot traveled with Abraham for a long time. And then Lot caught a glimpse of the city. He saw the lights, he saw the glitz, he saw the girls, he saw the riches and the resources and the money and the food and all of the greatness that the world promised him. And he said, "I want that. That seems better than wandering out in the desert." And so you'll remember, there came a point where the two parties had to separate, and Lot, he walks right towards the region of Ai, which means destruction or ruin. Lot never got over Egypt, and so he is always thinking worldly, socially, civilly, if that's even a word. And so Lot views God differently, and thereby relates to other people differently. is a tumbler, also known as a thermos, a mug, or drinkware. This one's brand new, and it's very durable. It's large, it can hold a lot. I drink from one of these just about every day. I'm not a coffee guy. I'm usually not a juice guy in the morning. What I really, really, really like is chocolate milk. Chocolate milk fans? Anybody? Yeah? Okay. I used to drink it every meal in college, okay? I've cut back a little bit. I love, specifically, rich chocolate Ovaltine. Kid tested, mother approved. I love Ovaltine, but the problem with Ovaltine is, after you make Ovaltine rich chocolate milk, it leaves a bit of a residue on the glass. Now, this particular glass, which happens to have just a wee bit of uber chocolate left over in the bottom, is from Thursday. And it's been sitting in here since Thursday. It's closed, don't worry. Now, what would you say, we have several parents here, what would you say if I decided for lunch, I'm just going to pour some more milk in here and just keep drinking? Ew. Ew. Right? You guys know what happens to milk after it's sat out for a while, right? That would be silly. That would be hazardous to my health for me to take something that is so disgusting and then try to pour something good and new and fresh into that and just pretend that it's all okay. And so Lot and his visitors go back to Lot's house. And they all go in, they wash up, they prepare for the meal, and there's a knock at the door. Men surround the house, young and old, and they say, Lot, I want you to bring those visitors out because we want to sleep with them. And Lot says, no, don't do this wicked thing. And if you're reading along for this story for the first time, you see this story, you go, oh, good. Oh, Lot, there's hope for you yet. You saved the day. You said no. You stood up for these men. You said this is a terrible thing to do. And then Lot does something despicable. If you'll notice in chapter 19, he says, no, don't do this wicked thing. Here, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Take them instead. Do whatever you want with them. See, Lot's view of God directly affected his view of everyone else, and Lot wanted to please people. He was more concerned with what these men thought of him than he was about what was right and wrong, what God thought was right and wrong. And so he offers his daughters and says, here, take them instead. Something which would probably later fracture his relationship with his kids. I'm sure his wife wasn't too thrilled about the decision either. And do you notice the men's response in Genesis chapter 19? Chapter 19, verse 9. They say, get out of our way. This fellow came here as an alien, as an outsider, a foreigner. And now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them. It's an interesting phrase. Now he wants to play the judge. Remember where the angels found Lot. He was sitting at the gates of the city, the gates which are where all legal and financial and economic deals take place. Is it possible, and I'm just speculating here, is it possible that Lot shows up on the scene in Sodom? This outsider comes with all sorts of resources and riches that he got from his uncle Abraham and their time that they spent in Egypt. He shows up in Sodom as an outsider and he decides he wants to get some influence, get some power. And so he uses his resources, does whatever it takes to work his way into a position of authority, say, as a judge. And now Lot sits in the gates of the city and he decides what's right, what's wrong, and what is just as an outsider. Well, that wouldn't sit very well with the people who have lived there their whole lives, right? And so Lot is telling them, no, don't do this, take my daughters instead. And they say, who is this guy? He shows up here on the scene from out of town, and he thinks he can play a judge, that he can decide what's right for us to do. Now that's complete from the Tyler commentary, and who knows whether it's accurate or not, but it seems to fit. Interestingly enough, the men are struck down with blindness. They couldn't see. Well, that makes sense. Because how they view God directly relates to how they view everyone else. And they hadn't seen God for a long time. And so their physical reality met up with their spiritual reality. And they couldn't see, blindly groping the house. Don't think that wording is on accident. And so the angels tell Lot, go find anybody you can, any relatives, any sons-in-laws, anybody else in the town that needs to be saved. And so Lot, he journeys off and he tries to go find his sons-in-laws. I'm sure he didn't mention that little incident where he tried to offer their future brides. And he says, guys, hey, I'm glad to see you. Listen, God is going to destroy the city. We need to go. God? Really? Like, the Lord? He's going to just... Whatever. Hey, we're watching the game. You want to just come inside? No. Okay. All right. Now, we'll talk to you later. Don't worry about it. They think he's joking. They blow him off. Because the Lord has never been a center of their relationship. God was never in the equation. How Lot saw God was just an accessory. He was something nice that Uncle Abraham would talk about from now and then, but he wasn't really supposed to be a part of your life. And so when it comes time, when the rubber meets the road, when it gets to be a tough situation and God is going to act, these people don't think he's serious because they don't believe that God truly exists. At the end of chapter 18, you'll remember Abraham is about to say farewell to his visitors. They start walking off, and God turns and he says, I'm going to go judge Sodom now, because it's a very evil place. And Abraham, he has this exchange with God, you'll remember. God, well, what if there are 50 people that are righteous in that town? Will you save it then? Yes, I'll save it then. God, what if there are 45 people? Will you save it then? Yes, if there are 45 righteous. God, what if there are 30 righteous people, good people? Would you save the city? God, what if there are 20? What if there are just 10 righteous people? Won't you save the city then? And God says, yes, I will. And then he leaves. Well, we come to Genesis chapter 19, and Lot is also doing some begging, but it has nothing to do with anybody else. Lot is more concerned with his own hide. The angels say, it's time to go. We gotta leave. I need you to go way past the mountains and just go. And Lot says, oh, no, I can't do that. You see how far those mountains are? That's at least, I don't know, a couple miles. Tell you what, there's a Motel 6 in the nice little town there. And we just go there, we can have continental breakfast the next morning, and then we can take off. I just say that it's just a little city. Don't destroy it, but I can't make it that far. See, even in the face of certain disaster, Lot sees God as a joke. He's not willing to do what is asked of him. He's not willing to save his own life. And Lot's wife turns around. We know this story. Lot's wife turns into a pillar of salt, which I thought was kind of funny until I started thinking about it. Lot's wife had been with him this whole time. She had experienced the lights of Egypt. She had enjoyed the desires of Sodom. She had liked her home. She had just redecorated the bathroom, and it looked nice. And when she got to the edge of town, she just couldn't let go. And so she turns around, she sees it, she turns into a pillar of salt. Salt, which is a mineral. Salt, which does what? Preserves. She takes on the form of salt, a preservative, something that tries to make things last for as long as possible. Her physical reality met up with her spiritual one. Abraham, who had spent last chapter begging for this city, he sees all the smoke and he realizes that God had not found 10 people to save the city. He doesn't know if his nephew and their family is alive or dead. He doesn't know, but what he does know is that 10 people were not found. Some people have trouble with this and other passages like it. Because we read the Old Testament and it seems like God is just mad all of the time. That he's just got like a fireball gun and he just likes to fire it at things, right? Oh, you said something bad. Oh, you looked at me funny. Oh, you people are doing bad things. Let the ground open up. As we read the Old Testament, that's kind of the picture of God that we get. That he's this giant bully with a magnifying glass, zapping all of us little ants here on earth. And then we come to the New Testament, and it seems like God has had a change of heart. Now suddenly he is a fluffy bunny that exudes hearts and butterflies, and he rides a magic rainbow. Now, there are lots of questions that come up when we try and figure out God's wrath. Why does this happen? It isn't fair. How could a loving God do this to people? I mean, everybody's equal. That's what we as Americans have been taught. So shouldn't every life be worth something? Why would God destroy people like that? Well, first off, there are a couple different things to look at here. A couple different aspects, and I'll cover them quickly. The first aspect is, well, I'll quote my good dear friend Andy Stanley, who is actually a huge megachurch pastor down in Atlanta, Georgia, who I've spoken with for about 30 seconds. And he said, we're on a first-name basis, he says that fairness ended in the Garden of Eden. I'll say it again. Fairness ended in the Garden of Eden. When we as humanity decided to take a bite of that forbidden fruit, we said, you know what? We got it covered. We know what's best. You don't need to be fair. When we sin, it splits apart the universe. It does things to our lives, both spiritually and physically. Our choices have consequences. These are lessons that we all know. How could a loving God do that? The thing about God's wrath is that it still exists today. God is no less wrathful than he ever was. The difference is, in the Old Testament, when God had, when you did something that deserved God's wrath, there was no buffer. You just took it. You paid for it. After Jesus comes on the scene, after the New Testament, he paid for it. God's wrath didn't change, the target did. Do you see what I see? How you view God directly affects how you relate to everybody else. Do you see God as a glutton? Someone who just takes and takes and takes, and there's no excuse, there's no rhyme or reason, he just takes whatever he wants? Because then that will affect how you relate to other people. You'll begin hoarding your resources. You'll begin clinching onto things with white knuckles, and you won't ever let anybody in. You won't let anybody have what you have. Or do you see God as a provider? God, I thank you for the time that you gave me with this person. God, I thank you for the way that you've given me a job. God, I thank you for the way that you've put a roof over my head. God, I thank you for the way that I had 3 meals today. Not everybody in the world can say that. God, I thank you for the way that you brought me to a church where I don't have to worry about people storming in the door with guns. God, I thank you for the way that you've surrounded me with people who actually know my name and care about me. God, I thank you for the way that you brought my family to me during this holiday season. God, I thank you for the way that I actually have money to buy presents for my kids. God, I thank you for the way that I can get to and fro and I don't have to worry about it. God, I thank you for the way that I get to be a Christian in the greatest country in the entire planet. If you view God as provider, you begin to see his generosity all over the place. And so when you're asked to lose something or give something or serve somebody, you see it as a gift, not as a burden. Our buddy Lot leaves Sodom and the ashes. And because he views God a lot differently, he's more interested in what the world wants. His life doesn't quite end up very remarkable. He ends up paranoid. He leaves the little town and he takes his 2 girls and they go live in a cave. I'm sure they enjoyed that. The 2 girls who have just lost their future husbands, their dad has gone nuts, and now they're living in a cave, isolated from everyone else, decide that the best motive, the best plan of action is to sleep with dear old dad so that we can continue our line. As you can tell, they don't see very clearly. Their descendants, the 2 girls, their boys and their boys and their boys, these would be 2 major tribes, known as the Moabites and the Ammonites. Those names might sound familiar because they become 2 of the most dangerous and most controversial enemies of the people of God throughout the Old Testament. You can't mix rotten and fresh. It just doesn't work. So what is it that you need to let go of? Maybe for you it's a habit, something you know you shouldn't do, something that is harmful to you, something that is harmful to your family, something that is hurting or distracting, or it's skewing your view. It's that habit that you're thinking about right now of yours. Maybe it's an attitude. I'm always angry. I'm always frustrated. I'm always stressed out. I'm always looking at other people. I'm always yearning for something more. I'm always impatient. Maybe it's a toxic relationship. Somebody who you have been around for a long time, they're a good buddy, and they seem to take you to places and to ideas and to things that are just not good. Maybe you need to clean out your cup. Things that you thought were good, that have been sitting in there for a while, that now are just unhealthy. It's time for a new perspective. Do you see what he sees? God, we thank you for today. We thank you for the way that You provide. We thank you for the way that you protect. We thank you for the way that you deliver us even when we don't deserve it. You still saved Lot and his family, even though they just didn't deserve it. God, ultimately, you are the judge. You are the one who will decide. You are the one who sees our life for who we really are. You see every decision, every relationship, every moment that we exist. You understand all of that. And there will come a day when our physical reality meets up with our spiritual one. And I pray that we will be reunited with you and not sent farther away. Father, I pray a blessing upon these folks. And I ask that you would help us to eliminate the things that need to be eliminated, that you would help us clean our cup. And it's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen. If you would all please stand by singing 2 songs. The first is Open Our Eyes, which is number 44 in your little purple book. We'll sing that one twice. And then this one is for you. Hopefully we'll see you all back to help with the nursery project this afternoon. Have a good day.